afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good evening. Thank you for joining me. I had to let the cat out. Yeah, I wanted to talk to everybody this afternoon. Let's get a little bit more of this outside view, because just like this morning, you watched the sun come up. Now you're watching the sun go down. Okay, and yeah, let's have a little fun here. Now, I really wanted to talk to everybody about the effects of neurofeedback. Okay, the positive effects of neurofeedback. What I've been doing in the morning is waking up and recording, actually broadcasting my morning neurofeedback sessions. This is what I do for myself. This is my neuro amp. This is my EEG amplifier. So I plug it in. It's a 2-channel amplifier. You got channel 1, channel 2. And I use those 2 channels to train the left and right hemispheres of my brain in synchrony, neurofeedback. This is where you're synchronizing the hemispheres of the brain. And I train in the gamma frequency range. Now, that's very important. First, I want to show you what people see in the morning, because I left it up from this morning. Right? Now, this is Signet. This is the software called Signet. And what you see on the left side of your screen is the Signet control, right? Right here, the Signet control. You can see the graph of my brain waves and different frequency levels. What you see in the big blue field is the composite of both left and right hemispheres of my brain. My brainwave activity, okay? When I'm in the midst of training, it flattens out. Why? Because you can see that the frequencies that are represented only go up to 40 hertz. That is in the gamma range, but where I train is at 50 hertz. If I was training at 40 hertz, what you would see is complete blue or black, ideally, and there would be like a ridge, like you see those little red peaks, those spikes. There would be like a ridge of spikes on the far right. But the frequency that I train at, 50 hertz, is higher into the gamma frequencies zone, and it's not on this chart. It can't be shown on this chart. Okay, what you see to the right are the graphs that concern, this is something, I don't know if I can really, yeah, I think you will. If you look really closely, you should be able to see my cursor. So why don't I do this? Yeah, there you go. The cursor is there. So if you see here on the right, the top, the red lines are indicative of my delta waves. Now, this is throughout the entire hour-long session that I did this morning. The purple are the theta waves. The blue, the turquoise, I guess you could say, are the alpha waves. The yellow are the beta waves, and the white are the high beta. Everything is suppressed. And I know you want to ask me, well, Devin, why are your deltas so high? Everybody's deltas are usually higher. The only person that I put on the training whose deltas were not high, everything was kind of flatlined. This particular individual, I don't personally thinks very much, right? He's not a big time thinker, so we're not going to use him as an example. Now, below you can see this black line here. It represents spiking every time I achieved synchrony, every time I could get oscillatory movement in sync between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of the brain. Okay, so the frequency at which you train, here I am training, you can see down here I'm training at 50 hertz. You can slide the Signet software all the way up to 40, but then you have to inch it up with the arrow to get to 50, because most people don't go up that high. Now, I have to tell you that in order to train at 50 hertz takes a long time and a lot of training. You have to start off with infralow. Well, in my clinic, you have to start off with infralow neurofeedback in order to get rid of the neocortical dysregulation that most people have accumulated in their life. The overaccumulation of neocortical dysregulation, as we know, is called PTSD. So you got to get rid of all of that, because if you try to train in higher frequencies while your neocortex is still heavily dysregulated, then you're going to cause yourself anxiety. You're gonna it's not gonna be the experience that you're looking for. It's not gonna be the experience that you're looking for. Unfortunately, people have egos. We want to talk about race and IQ. I really don't believe in that bell curve garbage as much as I believe in the social paradigms that book reinforces. Now, whether or not it's true or not, I don't really know. And I question the empirical evidence, because I know a lot of very, very, very intelligent black people, people of all races, to be honest. And I know a lot of idiots in all races, too, even and especially the ones that have reputations for being smart. You know what I mean? I know a lot of stupid Asians, for example. And stupid Ashkenazis too, right? Shout out to my boy David. What's up, man? Love you, brother. Not talking about you. Anyway, so where was I? So anyway, it takes a long time. You got to first go through infralow neurofeedback and get rid of the neocortical dysregulation. And what I recommend is, after you provoke a shift in infralow, take your time, man, because infralow is fun, right? During infralow neurofeedback, you can watch a movie, you can play a video game. It's introductory. Infralow is most effective with children on the autism spectrum. It's very effective for all of the dysregulatory, I guess you could say, ailments or conditions, insomnia, bruxism, ADD, ADHD, anxiety, depression, stress, autism spectrum disorders. There are a lot of things that can be addressed. Okay, I'm not going to say cured. And remember, this is for entertainment purposes only. I'm not a doctor, and nothing that you see or hear on any of my channels should be construed as medical advice in any form. Having said that, let's get back to the crux of what I'm trying to talk about. Now, many of you have noticed in the past two mornings, I've returned to my routine of Synchrony neurofeedback. And as you can see, I train at 50 hertz, which is pretty fast. And if you notice, just in the past 2 days, because I'd already achieved a shift years ago, but just with the past two sessions, right? I feel great. My mental clarity is sharper. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm talking a lot faster and I'm reading a lot faster, and all of the wonderful benefits of neurofeedback are taking place. And, other than the beer that I had this afternoon with my lasagna, I stay away from drugs, I stay away from alcohol, and I stay away from these things because they lower your vibration. And my objective right now is to raise my vibration, okay? Before I ran the marathon, the LA Marathon last March, you can see my ribbon up there, and my bib, right? I'm number 19053. Anyway, I don't know what number I'm going to get on my bib this coming March, but that was my bib from last March's marathon. It brought me at my age to embrace, after a life of bodybuilding, to embrace a hybrid training program. So now I'm running and swimming and lifting, or pretty soon I'm going to be lifting first and then running and swimming. Now that it's getting cooler, right, I can do that. I can lift and then run afterward. When I was a kid, I could do that in Miami, even on a 100-degree day. But those days are no longer here. I mean, that was okay. I hiked today. I didn't run. It was like 91 degrees. Anyway, I digress. What I'm saying is that it is a process. It is training, right? It's like being the guy with the big muscles in the gym, and then, the little kid is trying to find a shortcut to getting muscles. And he keeps asking you questions. Hey, how long do you think I have to lift weights before I get big as you, sir? And you just got to tell him, hey, man, I've been lifting weights for 10, 20 years, man, or 15 years, or however long it's been. And, big guys in the gym don't mind telling you, hey, man, you're a shrimp, you're a wimp, you're a pencil neck. And, in order to get out of being a pencil neck, you're going to have to put in the time. Well, you are a cognitive pencil neck, okay? And in order to become an effective genius egghead like me, you're going to have to put in the time. You're going to have to put in the time. You got to put in at least 20 sessions, probably 50 or more, of infralow neurofeedback. What I personally recommend is that you move beyond that. When I say infralow, I mean the frequency at which you're training is down here by 0. It's below the theta, the delta zone. It's below the delta zone, believe it or not. That's why it's called infralow, right? Ultra high, infralow, right? And this infralow frequency technique has been found. Shout out to the Othmers, Dr. Siegfried Othmer and Kurt Othmer. You guys are the best, man. These are the guys, and Sue, Heavenly, shout out. These are the people that taught me neurofeedback at the EEG Institute, and I have a lot of gratitude for that. Now, after you work out a considerable amount of dysregulation with infralow neurofeedback, we would move, at my Biometrics Health Center, we would move into alpha theta, right? Alpha theta neurofeedback. Now you see we're kind of coming up into higher frequencies. Theta is right about here. Theta is 7 hertz, where at least that's where I set it for theta. And then alpha, my alpha setting is usually around 10. Everybody has a signature of a particular, what we call yummy frequency. And if you really want to find someone's ideal theta zone, ideal alpha zone, you can do that. But that also will take time, and that also will take more sessions, right? But we have an expression in neuroscience, shift happens, right? Shift happens. And all you have to do is just continue to train in close interval, which means try to do it every day. That's why I kept my clinic open 7 days a week, so I can be there on Saturday and Sunday for people who were very serious about achieving a shift, okay? Permanent shift, basically, in cognitive function. In other words, you actually digest the training, and actually is akin to actually having some muscles after repetitive weightlifting in short interval, right? Now, once you get through alpha, when you're in alpha theta, the theta frequency zone is light sleep, right? It's related to light sleep. It's the REM sleep zone. When you first go to sleep, right, and you have rapid eye movement, your eyes are just darting around, and you're not quite down in the delta zone. You're at about 6, 7, 8 hertz, not 5 and below. That's delta. So you're not knocked out. You're actually kind of getting there, and that's where the dreaming takes place, right? When you first go to sleep, and when you're waking up out of delta into theta. That's the dream zone. It's also the subconscious mind zone. It's also the area, the frequency zone that there are repressed memories and the repressed emotions that are attached to those memories. Yeah, I'm not going to get into the terminology used in other avenues, but that emotional area. First, the physical dysregulation of the neocortex has to be addressed with infralow neurofeedback. Then we move into alpha theta neurofeedback, client budget permitting, to bring up on an energetic level all of those lower emotions, all of those repressed, especially negative, but all of those repressed, most positive emotions aren't repressed, right? I mean, unless somebody wins the lottery and they don't want to tell anybody that they won the lottery. So I think that would be maybe an example of a repressed positive emotion. I don't know. All I'm saying is we dig up your stuff with alpha theta neurofeedback on an energetic level. It's like taking your painful crap and pricking it with a pin and letting the energy out during the back door, out through the back door. Now, hey, 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 pause. Okay, that back door shit. Anyway, once you do this, once you go through a shift, how do you know you've achieved a shift in alpha theta neurofeedback? My son Kai, shout out son, shout out to all of my kids, Yvonne, Katie, and Kai. When I was training my son, because I got into this to help recover Kai from the autism spectrum, I trained him in alpha theta, and I trained myself in alpha theta, right? I'll just give you an anecdotal example, okay? And we went to the zoo, the LA Zoo, in the middle of the summer. It was over 100 degrees. You know the smell of the zoo, right? Especially when it's over 100 degrees. And babies are crying and mamas are yelling, and people are just hot and bothered and miserable. And Kai and I just looked at each other and smiled, because we recognized that we were in a different state psychically than they were. We were shifted. We were shifted in alpha theta. So, if you're not bothered, if you don't have any issues that actually have energy, then yeah, your personality does change, okay? Your personality can change, unless you're an asshole and you just want to remain an asshole. I mean, that's up to you. That's a personal choice. But going through the alpha theta shift, afterward, you may notice that you could talk about topics that may have caused you a little bit of emotional discomfort before, and they no longer cause you discomfort. And you're like, wow, basically you released the energy from the memory, right? And that's alpha theta. Now you want to get into gamma. You want to get into synchrony after that. Synchrony neurofeedback. You're synchronizing the two hemispheres of the brain to oscillate in synchrony with each other, to work together. Okay, so you're establishing new neural pathways, right, between the left and right hemispheres of your brain, and you're allowing your brain to work more cohesively. Think of the Limitless, right? Limitless movie, where Bradley Cooper learned, he didn't learn, he took a pill that helped him to use 100% of his brain, and so therefore, just with the natural intelligence that he already had, he was able to solve a lot of problems and stuff. But this is not a pill. This is training, right? This is training. I could take Dianabol or any kind of steroids and lift weights and get really big, but I'm natty. I'm natural. I've always been natty all my life, and I'd be damned if at this particular stage in life I'm going to start taking steroids. I mean, my muscles are still fine and beautiful and strong right now at my age because I'm natty. I'm natural, right? Well, neurofeedback is a natural, non-invasive way of restoring the brain to its natural balance, okay? Restoring the brain to its natural balance. First, physically, by getting rid of the neocortical dysregulation. Secondly, by purging any emotional hang-ups or junk you may have. And of course, everybody's had different experiences in life, and everybody handles them differently, right? I mean, some guys, most guys who go to war, right, who go to a war zone, who have to fight in combat, come back severely dysregulated. This is true. But sometimes civilians can achieve a similar amount of dysregulation, neocortical dysregulation, simply because their person handles stress differently, right? So the shock that a Marine might experience seeing his buddy step on a landmine and get blown up could have the same neocortical effect on a civilian who comes home and their house is on fire or something, or it opens up a phone bill and it's like $700, something, anything, things that happen. I'm just trying to give examples of things that happen in real life, right? So you get past that, you get past the neocortical dysregulation with infralow. You go into alpha theta, you purge your shit, right? You get rid of all of that, and your personality definitely improves. You're cleaning out the garbage, and then you move forward into synchrony. Now with synchrony, you can do anything, right? I mean, because you're synchronizing. You can see right here, I can put the dial at 0, right? I can synchronize your the hemispheres of your brain, in a low frequency zone, in the the delta zone here. I mean, if you're having, insomnia and you have someone to drive you home, and you want me to train you in delta, I can. You'll probably go to sleep during the session. Going to sleep doesn't stop neurofeedback. The input is auditory as well as visual. So going to sleep stops the visual, obviously, because your eyes are closed, but your ears don't close. Your ears will hear what's in those headphones, and you can still train. I've seen people reward gong, produce these spikes and everything while they were straight asleep. You can train in around 6, 7, 8 hertz in the theta if you want to do that. If anything below here, I would probably either stick to infralow or alpha theta. Anything below 10 hertz or 12 hertz or whatever. Now, if you want to just synchronize the brain, we could find your sweet spot or your yummy zone. In other words, what is your optimal state of neocortical arousal? In other words, what makes you happy? At what zone are you happy? It's always in the alpha zone, right? It's always in the alpha zone for most people. But it could be 9, 10, it could be 11, it could be 12, whatever. It's different for everybody, right? So we find that zone. Now, if I wanted to split this amp, there's a technique that we use called the honeymoon protocol. If I wanted to do single channel neural feedback, I would only use one channel of the amp and not the other one. I would only use channel 1. And why would I do single channel? Because there are a lot of protocols that are very effective that require single channel. T3, T4 comes to mind. T3 right behind the ears, T4 right here. That's a very good protocol for stability. Just basically stability, making you feel solid and whole again. All right, that's a very good beginning neurofeedback protocol. Also, T4, P4, parietal, the temple right here behind the ear, and parietal lobe right there. That is also very good in the very beginning stages for infralow neurofeedback, to calm the right side of the brain, right? To calm the right hemisphere of the brain. I'm going to take a break here and explain the differences between the left and the right. The left hemisphere of your brain is closer to your heart, and therefore it receives more blood. And this is in everybody, unless there's a person with their heart on the right side, but I don't think there is such a person. And the left hemisphere of the brain is larger in most people. It actually extends out further to the front, and it's just bigger than the right side of the brain. That's just the way it is. Now, could that have something to do with the assigned functions, the alleged assigned functions of the left and right hemispheres? The left being more analytical and linear, and the right being more emotional and creative? Maybe, could be. I don't know. I'm not a brain surgeon. I'm just talking about neuroscience as I understand it. But I can also use this amplifier in the 2-channel mode split the ground and train two people to synchronize with each one with a single channel protocol. Usually I'd put it back here and here, P3 and P4, which is the parietal lobe, P3 and P4, on two people. And then we put them right around, 10 hertz, 11, whatever. It's a very good date night idea. I've had some interesting experiences and always positive feedback from couples that do the honeymoon protocol. Yeah. So yeah, it's a good first date idea. You know what I mean? Especially for the first date, or especially in the beginning stages of a relationship, because it can really boost your cohesiveness with your partner if you're both on the same frequency. Especially like if you both come in for an hour or a half hour. An hour is better. And let me hook you up together, put a splitter on my headphones, let you guys have headphones, put a splitter on my ground, put the ground on your and your partner's forehead, and train the parietal lobe of each of you at the exact same frequency. Couples leave my office laughing, finishing each other's sentences. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And parents and children also do the honeymoon protocol to help them get along better, to help, when you have times in life where you and your kid are not necessarily seeing eye to eye. But I digress. I digress on my digression. Then we can work our way into the higher frequencies. Caution number 1, make sure that you are sufficiently regulated. In other words, that you've gotten rid of enough dysregulation with infralow and alpha theta. And if you want to start climbing up and training up, just understand that right here in 20 hertz, okay, that's beta. And that's like where you are right now listening to me, right? You're listening to me. So you're at the beta zone. 30, 25, like right about here, that's high beta. So if you would like to be in beta, or even better at 25 in high beta, I would hope that there is a specific reason for that. Because high beta, 25 hertz, is mostly associated with solving a problem, like thinking hard to solve a math problem, real concentration. And you got to remember, with all of these frequencies, there is a corresponding level of physical arousal that corresponds to the level of neocortical arousal. In other words, if I train you from 0.5 to 5 hertz in the delta zone, it's very likely that you will go to sleep, real sleep, like that, right? Real sleep. Yeah, it's happened a lot on the lazy boy in my office. If I train you around theta as well, yeah, it could knock you out. It could make you pretty drowsy. You train you around alpha, we could reach the yummy zone, and you'll leave and say, "Hey man, I'm chilling, and I'm thanking you for putting me at the alpha state." People who are severely dysregulated have trouble reaching the alpha state. But the alpha state is where we live most of the time, right? Being relaxed and alert, you wake up out of delta and then theta sleep, and hopefully you take your time to wake up, right? You let your dreams happen, and then hopefully you go right into alpha. Unfortunately, our troops that have PTSD don't go there. They go higher because their combat experience has put them in a state of hypervigilance. And the state of hypervigilance keeps the brain at a higher state of neocortical arousal, right? Because you're focused and concentrated. Like I said, 20, beta, 25, high beta, these are great frequency zones if you're focusing, If you're taking a test, if somebody came to me and said they wanted to take their SAT or their ASVAB or D-Lab or whatever test, maybe they wanted to take an IQ test like the Stanford Binet or the California Test of Mental Maturity, I'm actually what you call an extraordinary genius from the results of both of those tests. But that's another topic, and I'm not trying to brag, right? Anyway, that was a late laugh. Peanut gallery. Anyway, when you start to move up, remember there is a corresponding level of physical arousal. So I would say do your infralow, do training in the alpha zone. Training in the beta zones, I would leave for training for a specific purpose. If you have to give a lecture, if you have to give a test, and you want to be at your best, then you want to be sharp, and you're going to do it the same day that you come in to train in my clinic, then yeah, we can train you at, but then you'd have to get a good night's sleep, man, so that you can get your brain back down to the delta wave zone, and hopefully when you wake up, you can return to the alpha wave that you're normally happy at. Now, the reason I say that is because, like I said, with every increase in frequency, there is an increase in neocortical arousal and also a corresponding increase in physical arousal. That's why when you are focusing on a test, taking a long test that takes 8 hours, takes all day or whatever, you got tension in your forehead, you got tension in your shoulders, right? So, and the guys that have been in a state of hypervigilance in combat, sometimes they're kind of assholes for life when they get back, and it's not their fault. It's just that they're so dysregulated that going back to alpha on a regular basis is all but impossible without the assistance of neurofeedback training. Okay? I was part of the Homecoming for Veterans program and training veterans for free with post-traumatic who were the victims of PTSD. Okay? The subjects of PTSD. Now, when you get here to 30 hertz, this is where we begin the gamma zone. Now, interestingly enough, the neocortical arousal and physical arousal diverge at gamma, 30 hertz and above. In other words, the faster your brain is moving, the body starts to slow down. This is called the flow state. This is called the zone, right? When your mind is fast, but your body is relaxed. This is where you want to be when you're playing a sport. This is where you want to be with everything. If you're playing an instrument, if you're an actor, if you're a singer, any type of performer, if you're giving a speech, if you're at work, you want your mind to be clicking, but you don't want your body to be uptight and tense. So that's why I train in gamma. And because the faster you get, the more you're able to reach the zone, the flow state. And as far as I'm concerned, the smarter you get because your brain is moving much more quickly. Your personality is able to emerge, right? Because your mental faculty is not slowed. But like I said, I will continue saying this. It takes a lot of training to get to the point where you're ready to do synchrony neurofeedback 30 hertz and above in the gamma zone. Okay? We want to talk about that bell curve shit? So many clients come to me thinking that they're smarter than me somehow, and they have their egos attached to their brains. So when I give them this explanation that I just gave you, they want to start training at the very high frequency because they're super brain, whatever their ego is. And I got to just politely refuse, okay? Because believe me, if you train a dysregulated person at a very high frequency, you're likely going to cause a lot of stress and anxiety, and it's not a real comfortable experience until you get the kinks out of your neocortex, until you get rid of neocortical dysregulation. Wow, that was a real mouthful. I know it was. And I had to say all of that so that I could introduce these charts that I introduced before, okay? But I'm going to introduce them now. First is the brainwave frequencies chart, okay? So when we're doing neurofeedback, the cat scratching the door. When we're doing neurofeedback, these are the frequency zones. Let me see where I can. Oh, there we go, like that. There we go. I'll use this hand. These are the frequency zones, and these are what they are associated with. So, like I told you, if I trained you at 0.5, between 0.5 and 4 hertz, I could probably put you to sleep, or at least help you get there if you're having insomnia or whatever. Same with theta, visualization, trance, dreaming, right? Delta waves are associated with deep sleep, transcendence, and restoration. There's nothing like waking up after having a good night of delta sleep, okay? Theta waves, visualization, trance, and dreaming. Alpha waves, here we go. We're going up the chart, up the frequency, and you can see on the alpha right here, on all of them, you can see the frequency of the sine wave just getting the oscillatory frequency going higher. With the alpha wave zone, we're at meditation, creativity, and relaxation. The reason I keep looking up is because I have a giant big screen TV in front of me that I use as my monitor. So, I'm not just like, trying to imagine things when I'm looking up. I'm really looking at something here. I'm looking at what you're looking at. It's just that my monitor is very big. Beta waves between 12 and 30 hertz. Okay. Okay. All right. Maybe 13 or whatever. We're not going to go there. Beta waves are, like I said, where you are right now if you're listening to me, right? Alertness, concentration, and thinking. Above 25, they don't split, on this chart, they don't split beta and high beta. But in neurofeedback, right, in the neurofeedback world, we consider beta one thing and high beta another thing, or we split those two up, right? So 25 to 30 is what we consider high beta, and 12 to 24 or whatever is just beta. Now, here is my favorite spot, gamma, right? Just like I was telling you, gamma. The gamma zone, gamma waves, 30 to 100 hertz, associated with insight, peak experience, and synchronization. I love the gamma zone. I love the gamma zone because that's where the flow state is. Like I said, your mind is going 1,000,000 miles an hour and your body is relaxed. It is a state that monks and lifelong meditators, there's a very, very good video where the Othmers went to, I think it was Vietnam or Tibet. I don't know where it is, but they were speaking Vietnamese. They were speaking with Buddhist monks. I don't know if they were actually in Vietnam, but these were lifelong meditators, and they were giving their experience after neurofeedback in Synchrony in the, I think it was alpha, beta, and then gamma. And they said that the state, because when you're a lifelong meditator, you're able to reach that really, really powerful deep meditative state where your mind is functioning at a super high frequency and the body is completely relaxed. And you should see this video. Just look it up. Gamma Synchrony Neurofeedback, Neurofeedback Institute, and you'll enjoy it. But I want you to hear the testimonial directly from the monk, the Buddhist monk that was trained in the field. Now, I'm going to introduce a hypothesis. I don't want anyone to take what I'm saying as medical fact, because unless I, write a peer-reviewed article and and get acceptance from the neuroscience or the medical community, then it's a theory. But in my experience, my anecdotal experience, what I'm saying is absolutely true. And so I would like to, with the assistance of both Chat GPT and Grok, I would like to go over this information because David R. Hawkins created the vibrational energy chart and the map of consciousness. These are the same thing, these two other images that you see. Okay? And every level, now we're not talking about, when these numbers do not correspond to neurofeedback frequencies at all. So I don't want to fool you. I don't want to give you any bad information, any wrong information. Okay, but let me open this first one up. Okay, let's open this first one up and move it there. Move it in front. Okay, and transition. Now, the vibrational energy chart. This is a simple chart, but it's a pretty one. It's a beautiful chart, right? With this chart, these frequencies do not correspond to these frequencies. Just understand that, right? They do not correspond. However, once you are trained in gamma and you actually achieve a shift in neocortical arousal or a neocortical function, when you achieve a shift, that means that you're actually speeding up the frequency at which your brain is operating most of the time, right? Your brain operates in every frequency throughout the day, but where you are mentally and emotionally, if you are dysregulated, if you are not too dysregulated to train up into the higher frequencies, it will actually change your experience in life. And the reason I know this is because I do gamma training for golfers, right? I had clients that played golf and they came to me to get into the zone. I've also had clients that played football and soccer and a lot of different sports. A lot of athletes come to me and a couple of musicians and whatever. And so we go through the process. We go through the painstaking process of getting rid of dysregulation, dealing with emotional baggage, getting rid of dysregulation with infralow, a bunch of sessions, and then dealing with the clearing of emotional baggage with alpha theta. And then once that's done sufficiently, and I can tell, usually by the feedback that I get, the verbal feedback I get from the clients, right? They tell me how their life is changing and whatnot. When we are able to get to 30 hertz, 30.25, 30.5, 30.75, 31, 31.25, 31.5, 31.75, 32, 32.25, 32.5, 32.75, I hope you recognize the pattern. I hope you have the faculty of pattern recognition. In other words, in order to get to the point where you're training at 50 hertz like me, right? It takes a while. It takes a while because you're not only raising your frequency 0.25, you're actually trying to provoke a shift there too. So you don't just do that for one session. You have to stay there. And you gotta slightly move up. And some people can't. Some people can't do it, or they prefer not to. It just depends. It's all training. You don't want to give people constipation or anything like that by jumping to too high of a frequency until they're ready for it. But when we are able to get to that peak, at least 40 hertz, it doesn't have to go all the way up to 50, at least 40 hertz, then yeah, that's when I get the feedback that, hey man, my golf game is better. I can concentrate, especially on the putting green. Yeah, a lot. Even musicians tell me, I'm able to play better. A lot happens. That's the flow state. But as a person, what it also represents is the unifying frequency zone. So that's where you can get close to what we call Christ consciousness, because that's the frequency zone. Not only is it unifying for you as a person, it also helps you to think win-win. It's also good for conflict resolution, feeling, what does it say here? Insight, right? Peak experiences, synchronization. This is true. This is true. And when you provoke a shift in gamma, it takes a long time, but when you do it, then you're going to notice you're a lot more comfortable with life, especially if you're an athlete and you're trying to get to that flow state, and then you realize that training and synchrony helps you to achieve the flow state at will. You're not going to ever want to go back. And your thinking in other ways is going to improve. In other words, you can rise. You see the vibrational energy chart. You can, by staying at gamma, you can raise your energy frequency. This is my theory. So remember, I'm not a doctor and I'm not telling you anything as scientific fact. I'm only giving you the anecdotal experience that I've had in 10 years of doing neurofeedback at the Biometrics Health Center. So I think I have 10 years and literally hundreds of clients, okay? Now, we've already talked about the lower frequencies, 20 for shame, guilt. Shame is about the worst thing a human being can experience, okay? It's really impossible to reach a good sense of self-worth if you're ashamed, if you feel guilty, if you feel apathetic. Grief is hard. Grief is hard. It pulls you down there. Fear, not too familiar with fear. I'm not too much of a scary cat, but I understand that fear can be pretty difficult for people to experience. Desire, coveting, dopamine addicts, any kind of addict, right? Because desire is addiction, craving, right? You have a hole in yourself and you're trying to fill it through internet corn, right? Do not eat the internet corn, okay? I'm talking about pornography. Anyway, anger. Anger is not a good place to be, right? Anger is not a good place to be. Every time you act out of anger, you end up regretting it. Don't you? Okay, so you know that. Pride. Yes, pride. Courage is a little bit more. You're getting a little higher. You're climbing out. Then you go to neutrality, willingness, acceptance. Okay. Now up to here, all of the stages of grief are below. Have you noticed that? Right? They say that if you have to grieve something, so it's not. You could be in the lower vibrational zone, and it could be no fault of your own. Right? Most of the time, grieving is not your fault. Grieving is because of a loss that you suffered that you couldn't prevent. And so you go into grieving. Somebody who you love dies or something. I mean, so, and then when you are there, oh man, you could get apathy. A lot of people, if they lose someone who's important enough to them, they could go through a period of saying, I just don't care. Let's hope the grieving is not accompanied with guilt, because a lot of GIs that have combat experience, they have a lot of guilt attached to their grief. My buddies died. Why wasn't it me? Why didn't I die? I don't want to get too emotional because I'm a veteran myself, and I've helped a lot of veterans, and I know that feeling. Okay. Fear, desire, anger. Anger is part of the process, right? Rationalization is part of the process. You rationalize because you fear that you may not be able to handle confronting the issue head on. Anger, of course, right? And then courage, and then neutrality, then willingness, right? And then acceptance. And then when you reach acceptance, you're through grieving, right? That's the 4 stages of grief. But there are higher, vibrational energy frequencies to go to, and that's where I live, and that's where I want to help people live, right? at reason, at the very least, reason, right? Above that is love. Well, the Beatles said it, right? All you need is love. Love is all you need. And that's true, right? And then joy, okay, is above that. And then peace, okay, joy. I experience little brief, periods of joy, and I like it. I like to laugh, I like to joke, I like to find the humor in things, whatever. I'm a bit of a clown in that way, and I like it. I believe that life should be joyful. Peace. Yes, peace. Everyone wants peace. That's where you want to be. And if you train in gamma long enough, you can hover around here as your normal state of being, and reason and above, 400 hertz and above. And then, of course, there's enlightenment, what we call the Christ consciousness, right? The enlightenment stage. Christ, Buddha were enlightened men, right? So that very small percentage of people. I'm not going to fool you. I'm not going to delude you. But very few people actually reach that level. Now I'm going to go over this again. Except now I'm going to go over this with the chart that explains things a little bit more, right? And I've already gone through this on previous videos, but if you're just now joining me, I'm going to go over it again. Now, the bottom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 frequencies, right, deal with what we call the survival paradigm. You ever meet a person who's in survival mode, and your heart might want to go out to help them, but you just can't because you can't trust them, right? When a person, let's take it from the bottom up, right? Thanks, Train. Actually, let me make sure you know what? I'm gonna put a little bit more bass in this microphone. I'm gonna turn on my second mic and give you a little bit more of a full surround sound before I go into this. Yeah, how does that sound? Does it sound better? I hope so. I thought it would. Okay, shame. Let's get down to the bottom here. Shame, that's the worst. That's the worst place a person could be vibrationally. The energetic log is 20. Predominant state is humiliation. And their view of life is miserable. Their God view is that God is despising them, that God despises them because they are ashamed and they feel like what they're doing and what they are isn't acceptable to God. And their process is one of elimination. That's it's a very unfortunate place to be because people who are experiencing shame can actually get into self-unaliving, and that's not a good place to be. All right, guilt is really not much better, but it's got an energetic log of 30. And the predominant state is one of blame. Okay, their view of life is that life is evil. And their view of God is that God is vindictive. And that means that their view of life is vindictive. Okay, and their process is one of destruction. I have worked with and known personally many women who are stuck at that 30 level after having abortions, after having pregnancy terminations, and depending on their religious upbringing, and well, I don't even think it has anything to do with religious upbringing, because terminating an unborn child is wrong even if you're an atheist. So a lot of women, unfortunately, we have a political system that tells them that this is something that's good to do, or something that will free them to pursue more, selfish things, and that is not really tied to their purpose or whatever. But they never really get rid of that. They never really get past that. Some people go into apathy, right? With an energetic log of 50. And when I'm not just talking about women. I'm talking about women and men, especially men. Okay. A lot of men are in survival survival mode, and it's really concerning. People in apathy with an energetic log of 50, their predominant emotional state is despair. Their view of life is that life is hopeless, and their God or their God view is that God is condemning them. Right. And so their process is abdication, right? They let go. They're like, whatever, I don't care. And so, you know what I mean? You know, I used to say, the teacher tells the student, you're ignorant and apathetic. And the student says, I don't know what that means, so fuck it. Above that is grief, right? Grief, like I said, man, most of the time grief is something that happens not as a result of anything other than a tragedy happening to you, right? But even though you didn't cause it, it is still your responsibility to get out of it, okay? Right, Katie? Even though you didn't cause it, it is still your responsibility to climb your ass out of it. All right? The predominant state of a person at that 75 energetic log level is regret. Their view of life is tragic. Okay? I once had a relationship with a woman who has a very tragic view of life till this day. And although I have very deep compassion for her and for her experiences, as a refugee and whatnot, I have tried unsuccessfully to help raise her frequency out of the grief paradigm. Okay, well, she refused to do any neurofeedback therapy, so she doesn't want to take herself there. In fact, she likes to pull other people down into that lower survival paradigm. Their view of God is disdainful. Now, a lot of people who suffer the cultural paradigm of colorism tend to be in that grief state. And they think that because they are dark complected that God has punished them somehow, or God doesn't like them. And that's very unfortunate. Especially when, they believe all of that Schofield Bible, chosen people bullshit, because, anyway, you're worshiping God that doesn't love you. I really can't see that as being a healthy state of mind. And their process is one of despondency. That's right, they're despots. Okay? Now above that, and I'm trying to climb up fast, man, because I don't even like talking about this survival paradigm. But you got to talk about it, because you got to recognize where people are. When somebody walks in, you have to listen to the way they speak. You have to learn what their suggestibility patterns are. You have to learn what their sexuality patterns are. And I don't mean sex like sex making love. I mean sexuality, their outgoing communication. Everyone has a certain method of suggestibility, how they are most effectively spoken to, and everyone has their own sexuality, which is the way they project their communication out into the world. And if you listen to a person, if you talk to a person long enough, you can pick these things up and you'll be more equipped to help them. All right? Fear. Fear has an energetic log of 100. The predominant emotional state is anxiety. Their view of life is that life is frightening. All right? They're scared. They're cowards. Their God view is punitive. They think God is punishing them. And their process is one of withdrawing or cowering or being a coward. Okay? Then we get above, and that's at a frequency, energetic log of 100. Then we get above that to desire. Desire. When we're talking about sexual desire, but we're also talking about, addiction. And so where does a sexual desire, where is sexual desire attached to addiction? Well, through sex addiction, obviously, right? And we have a world right now that is inundated with corn, okay? And you're going to find out why I'm explaining all of this right now. Because there is a deliberate campaign to keep us, citizens of the world, and especially citizens of America, in this lower survival paradigm, to pit us against each other, right? When we're better than that. We're better than that. Not only citizens of the United States, but citizens of the world. We're all better than that. Okay? But at desire state, the predominant emotional state is craving, right? Craving. Okay? If you can't get some good neurofeedback training, get yourself some dopamine patches, okay? Mental wellness patches. Trust me, it works, okay? Yeah, they work really good. Get yourself out of the dopamine addiction so that you're not looking for that little red dot on Facebook all the time telling you that you have new messages that mean absolutely nothing, or that there's new things for you to notice that mean absolutely nothing. That's a dopamine loop. That's a dopamine addiction. Get off of that internet corn, okay? Get off of that internet corn, all right? It's no good. It's no good for you. You spend your time brooding all day and you feel like shit afterward, don't you? So don't do it. But you see where that is. That's at the desire level. That's an energetic log of 125, right? Your view of life is disappointing. Yeah, if you beaten off every day, I'd be disappointed with life too. And your God view is denying. Yeah, God's denying you from the attention and company of the opposite sex because you're handling it on your own. You're handling it. And your process is enslavement. Yes, you could be enslaved. You're an addict. That's where you are. This is desire. You are an addict. So whether it's sex or drugs or alcohol or whatever, you're enslaved to this desire. You're trying to solve your problems or food. Food is a big one, man. Food is a real big one. A lot of people try, and I'm from New Orleans. We love good food. I personally love good food. And we come from a food culture, a culinary culture. And there are so many things that are so delicious that that's one that people can get stuck in, okay? All right? People very close to me, right, have suffered from morbid obesity, and it's very unfortunate. People very close to me have suffered from alcoholism too. Okay, that desire place is the bad place to get stuck at. Although it's better than fear, right? But it's still a bad place to get stuck at. Another place that's bad to get stuck at is right above that, anger, with an energetic log of 150, and the predominant state is hate, right? The view of life is antagonistic, right? And their God view is vengeful. So if they feel like they're worshiping a vengeful God, or even not worshiping, just under a vengeful God, then they're going to be vengeful people, okay? And the process is one of aggression, So basically, it's like the cop that came banging on my door at midnight, and I'm thinking, what the fuck, man? This guy has obviously been talking to my baby's mama and believes the bullshit that she said. And, his name is Chen, so in all likelihood, he doesn't have much experience with women, so he doesn't understand that because he has a micro penis, right? I mean, let's just keep it real. And they fall into that, in the Korean culture, they call it Han, H-A-N, Han, right? I used to live in Koreatown. And, ask a Korean person, they'll explain to you what Han is, right? But the way I surmise it, and I could be, and it's definitely not the way people in Korea surmise it, but the way I surmise it is just a basic bitch-ass attitude, because you got a small dick. I'm just keeping it 100 with you. So yeah, I mean, this cop was probably feeling all of those things, right? Wanted to play the rooftop Korean, wanted to prove that that Asian men can be masculine. I don't know. I have no idea what the person's motivation is for being in the survival paradigm, unless I ask them, unless I talk to them, right? And then above that is pride. But not the pride that comes as a result of setting standards of behavior for yourself and living up to those standards. That's earned pride. That's real pride, right? But no, this is the kind of ego-based pride where you're trying to gaslight, you're trying to get over, you think you're smarter, you're withholding information, you're trying to outsmart, you're trying to be conniving, right? It's that type of pride. Energetic log of 175, right? Their predominant emotional state is one of scorn. And their view of life is that life is demanding. And their God view is that God doesn't care. God is indifferent. That's how they think. That's what they believe. And their process is one of inflation. Now, you see that red line above pride? Okay. Below that, honestly, man, all of the frequencies below that can really, really negatively affect your personality and your character. And you may have compassion and want to reach out to a person that you notice or that you see is in survival mode. They're following the survival paradigm. But a word to the wise, a word of caution to the wise. Okay? It could burn you. It could burn you, right? It could burn you. I was dating a young lady from Egypt, very beautiful young lady, green eyes, man. So I won't say your name because everybody knows who you are, baby. But she was there. She was in that survival paradigm. And there were many indicators, right? It was like on the Boondocks, guest hoes coming to dinner when Pops brought this lady of the night home, and she showed little signs of being in survival mode by cleaning her plate and licking it because she didn't eat very frequently and stuff like that. They made light of it. They made a joke of it. But being in a state of dealing with someone in a survival paradigm, it could get you bitch slapped by a pimp named Slickback, right? You don't want to be there, right? You don't want to be there. So I tend to avoid people when they're in survival, not out of judgment, just because it could be dangerous, right? It could be dangerous. It's like befriending a stray pit bull. Yeah, you feel for the pit bull. You do. We should, right? But it could be kind of dangerous trying to pet him, right? Now, above that, now we're reaching into reason and integrity. We're getting into the positive, more proactive energetic logs. So, courage. Dun, 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 the hero, right? Courage has an energetic log of 200. The predominant emotional state is affirmation. Yeah, I can do it. You can do it. We can all do it. Their view of life is feasible. Yeah, that's feasible. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can do it. I can create what I want and everything. Their God view is permitting. God's letting me do it. Or who's gonna stop me? Right? You stop thinking about somebody's not gonna let you do what you want to do. No, you have courage, and your process is one of empowerment. Now, isn't that powerful? Isn't that positive? Compared to everything below it. Above courage is neutrality, right? I went from being courageous enough to fight to realizing that I don't have a dog in the fight, right? I'm neutral. I'm neutral because I have enough value in myself. That's an energetic log of 250. The predominant state is trust, right? And their view of life is that life is satisfactory. See how this is all in the green? And their God view is enabling. God is not only permitting, but he's enabling them, right, to do what they need to do, to achieve their goals, right? And their process is release. Let go and let God, right? Let it go. Okay? Above that is willingness. I like willingness. Willingness has an energetic log of 310. Predominant emotional state is one of optimism, right? And their view of life is hopeful, right? I love optimists. I am an optimist, and I love optimists, right? Their God view is inspiring. God inspires. Yes, God does inspire. And their process is one of intention. Now, see, this is when the sparks of entrepreneurship start. This is when you start talking to the person that you're working with, and you understand that they are setting goals for themselves. They're goal oriented. And any psychologist or even psychiatrist will tell you that that is a sign of health. That is a sign of health. That's a good sign, right? Because if you have goals, then you're not in any of those other lower frequencies. And then above that is acceptance. Remember what we were talking about people in the stages of grief, okay? Acceptance with a energetic log of 350. Their predominant emotional state is forgiveness. and their view of life is harmonious, right? They're starting to get into flow, right? And their God view is merciful because their higher self, they are reaching their own higher self. And by reaching their higher self, then they can be more giving toward others, right? Right? Now, instead of being in the pride zone of 175, which is about half of that frequency, actually it is exactly half of that frequency, where you're trying to one up everybody, and you are trying to gaslight, always having something to prove. Okay, you don't want that. But of course, their God view is merciful, and their process is one of transcendence. They know that they're on the way up. They know that they're on the way up. Okay, now with repeated gamma synchrony neurofeedback training, yes, you can push yourself. In my humble opinion, in my theory, I have to say that until I get a few peer-reviewed articles written. But look at how L. Ron Hubbard tried so much to introduce Dianetics, which is feedback assisted talk therapy, for better, for lack of another way to explain it, to the medical community, right, through peer-reviewed articles. Yeah, they didn't accept it. So I don't really feel hopeful about getting what I'm saying to you right now across to the medical or psychology establishment. In fact, even the people in the neurofeedback world with me probably haven't looked at things from this extended view that I'm telling you right now. But hopefully they will, right? Spread this video, right? Share this video. All right, now, above that, now we're getting to the good zone. You see how it's still in reason and integrity, but it's at the very top. Reason. I like to stay there, and I don't want to be any lower than that. Reason. With an energetic log of 400, their predominant emotional state is understanding, because they're reasonable people. And their view of life is meaningful. Yeah, well, if you reason, if you think about it, of course life is meaningful. Their view of God is wise, and their process is one of abstraction. Okay? Life is meaningful, right? Well, they don't want you to feel that, right? So they tell you that you live on a round ball that's chasing the sun through the universe, and you came from a monkey and from a puddle of protoplasm, and everything is random and very atheistic, and it takes you. It's a very irrational, unreasonable way to view life, but it's something that has destabilized the majority of the population of the world ever since they came up with that bullshit. And their process is one of abstraction. Okay? Now we go above where I'd like to be. Love requires vulnerability. You can't be in that state unless you're willing to be vulnerable, which means that most of the people in the world are operating in these lower paradigms. Okay? But you're still willing to love, knowing that many people will victimize you. They will take advantage of your love. They will see kindness as weakness. They will see vulnerability as naivete and stupidity. And many people who are at the pride state, if they see that light in you, because now I always talk about the light, right? When people notice the light in you, yeah, then they can get envious, okay? But you got to still keep that light. You can't change yourself, even though sometimes you may mistakenly cast your pearls before swine. Okay? Don't cast your pearls before swine, because they'll tear it up and turn around and tear you up. That's in the Bible. They will render you. All right? And I don't want to see you out there getting rendered. Okay? But, being in the love frequency, energetic log of 500, that doesn't mean you're stupid, right? It just means you're in the love frequency. That means that you really want to be loving. You would prefer to be loving. Your predominant emotional state is reverence. Namaste. Right? The light in me honors the light in you. Reverence. I revere you, and I revere God, and I revere this world that we live in. Their view of life is benign. Life is not going to hurt me. God is not going to hurt me. The world is not going to hurt me. So I have no reason to fear. When there's love, there's not fear. Where there's fear, there's not love. All right? Love and fear. Okay? They're actually, Arnold Patent, this author, he wrote 2 really good books. You Can Have It All and Death, Taxes, and Other Illusions. Right? So look up Arnold Patent, Patent, just like a patent, right? Arnold Patent, and those 2 books, right? You Can Have It All and Death, Taxes, and Other Illusions. Very good books. Very good books about the spiritual paradigm. And Arnold breaks it down. There's only 2 emotions, love and fear. And fear is the withholding of love, usually from the self, but most of the time from somebody else too, right? And your process is revelation, not the book of Revelations, not Armageddon, not the rapture. No, revelation, revealing the self. I'm an open book, for example, and I've been accused of oversharing, but it's not because I want to overshare. It's because I don't fear. I don't have any fear. I'm full of love. I am a loving person, and I like being a loving person. And the risks involved in being loving are worth it because I like who I am when I look in the mirror, and I sleep very soundly at night, knowing that I'm a loving person. And if it means, being an open book, then so be it. So be it. Joy. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't be taken down by a prideful person, or accosted by an angry person, or, get robbed by a junkie who's in the desire stage because you were trusting enough to leave him or her in your house unsupervised. It doesn't mean that you won't, confront people who fear you. You will, definitely. If you've reached the state of spiritual evolution where you're in the love place, you're going to find a lot of the fearful people are afraid of you, because you've reached a state of evolution, spiritual evolution, that most people never reach. Okay? I want to get all of this out before I read you these things that I got from Grok and ChatGPT. All right, now up in Joy, the Joy stage. All right, shout out to my Aunt Joy again. I love you. The energetic log is 540. That's very good. And the predominant emotional state is serenity. The view of life is that life is complete. The God view is a state of oneness. You're one with God. And the process is one of transfiguration. Now above that is peace. And that's inner peace. Okay? With an energetic log of 600. And the predominant emotional state is one of bliss. And their view of life is that life is perfect. And their God view is all being. And their process is one of illumination. I'm going to tell you the truth. As an entrepreneur, I only reach that joy and peace level when I'm absolutely sure that I have enough to make payroll for the next few months. That's just the way it is. As a man, as an entrepreneur, there's this expression called wholeness. If you remember the TV show Billions, the hero, we call him, of the TV show, often talks about being whole when he puts the money that he believes he should have in his bank account, then he's whole again. And I totally understand what he means when he says that. I've been on the process of building these apps, and it's very, very, very expensive. So, I like to hoard money, of course, and I like to, stack it up. And when you're wrapped up in a very expensive endeavor, it can challenge that feeling. Now, above that, of course, here we are at the top, which is enlightenment, right? Energetic log of 700 to 1,000. You see, there are many levels of enlightenment, many levels, all right? And the predominant emotional state is ineffable. Ineffable. In other words, you can't F with me. That's just my definition. But ineffable kind of has the same meaning as what I just said. Their view of life is, and their God view is self. They have discovered the God within, and their process is pure consciousness. I haven't been there yet, but I tell you one thing, I can push you up into reason and integrity and to love, joy, and peace after an extended shift in the gamma zone. This is a theory. Do not take what I'm saying as medical advice. But if you come to the Biometrics Health Center, I will show you. Okay, so let's check out what I got from chat, right? Synchrony, gamma, neurofeedback, and rising the map of consciousness, a well-researched view. The thesis, short thesis. Training hemispheric synchrony in the gamma band with neurofeedback can strengthen large-scale neural coordination, increase access to cognitive states commonly described as insight and peak experience, and through durable neuroplastic changes in attention, emotional regulation, and meaning-making support psychological shifts that map plausibly into movement from the survival level function toward higher reason and spiritual states as described in David R. Hawkins' Map of Consciousness. That said, the connection is an interpretive bridge, right? From neuroscience to metaphysical psychospiritual to a metaphysical / psychospiritual scale, and should be treated as a promising hypothesis rather than a proven causal chain. Yeah, I know. I mean, my anecdotal experience, I can consider that proof, but I know that I'm speaking to the public and I can't make medical or scientific claims such as that. But I just want to let you know what's possible. Anyway, let's listen to the introduction from Grok. The human mind is a dynamic tapestry of electrical oscillations where brain waves serve as the threads weaving together perception, emotion, and awareness. Among these gamma waves oscillating at 30 to 100 hertz stand out as the unifying frequency, facilitating the synchronization of neural activity across distant brain regions to force coherent experiences of insight, peak performance, and transcendent states. David R. Hawkins, a pioneering psychiatrist and consciousness researcher, mapped human evolution through his logarithmic scale of consciousness ranging from 1 to 1,000, where lower levels reflect survival-driven energetics and higher ones embody spiritual paradigms of unconditional love and enlightenment. Hawkins' framework posits that ascending this map involves transcending ego-bound paradigms. The survival paradigm below 200, dominated by force and fear, where the cop was at, right? Where most cops are at every day. It's unfortunate. I think that's a moral hazard or an occupational moral hazard, right? I have much compassion for police officers and much respect because they are they take out the human trash, right? And I personally would not want to. I understand why they wear gloves because I personally would not want to touch the people that most cops have to touch on a daily basis. Unfortunately, if you stay in that job too long, it could affect your personality, and everybody knows that, right? ACAB, but I don't believe in ACAB. I'm just saying that such an experience that all cops are bastards. It's there for a reason. It's unfortunate. It's a very unfortunate thing. I don't blame them because they're doing just like the garbage man, right? I passed 2 garbage trucks this morning. Guys were cool, right? I think it's cool that there's 2 steering wheels, on both sides of the truck and all of that stuff. Ugh, but I wouldn't want to do that job. I would not want to be sitting in that stinky truck all day. There's fucking no way, man. I'm glad somebody does it because it has to be done. Our garbage has to be taken out, right? But it takes a toll. That's an occupational hazard of that job. It takes a toll. It's disgusting. But somebody has to do it. And I feel the same way about police officers. I have no problem with police officers. I just understand that because of their, a lot of them have a real, they lack integrity. Many of them lack integrity. When they talk about that blue wall just means that they know that the majority of them are, lack integrity, and that they're willing to act without integrity to defend each other, right? They don't have an objective understanding of right and wrong, and therefore, many of them really, they don't deserve to have a badge and a gun and have the right to use it with impunity, or the presumed right to use it. Anyway, that's a complex problem. It's a complex problem, but it's a problem that has to do with social class. Because if you notice, with any race, right? Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, it doesn't matter, right? It's usually the lower classes of people that are always calling the cops, that always have the cops around, right? Always got the red and blue lights outside. Either complaining, filing whatever paperwork against somebody else, or whatever, putting people on child support, calling, lying and cops and sicking cops on people, or getting arrested, doing crime, right? Committing crime and being arrested. But it's always the lower classes of people, right? The ghetto brothers and sisters, the white trash. She hit me first. Remember on TV show Cops? She hit me first. The only thing consistent about all of those people that you see on Cops is that they occupy a low class. They occupy a lower class, a lower social class in society. And social class does exist. If social class didn't exist, we wouldn't have so many people trying to jump the border coming into the United States, because we have social mobility, right? You can be born poor, but you're not expected to die poor. In fact, rags to riches is not only possible, it's expected. In America, it's expected. So since we have social mobility, that means we have social classes. And the people who occupy the higher classes deal with the cops less than the people who occupy the lower classes. And that's because they are operating and living at a lower frequency. And as a result of dealing with low-class people, cops often become low-class people. I hate to say it. But look at Serpico. Look at all these cop movies where the cop's wife says, "Oh, you're becoming one of them," or what's the one with Pacino and that gangster movie? Well, all of them, right? All of them. Good cop movies. The women that they're with detest the destruction of their character and their soul as an occupational hazard of being a cop. And some cops come to they come to the conclusion that in order to be effective or even survive as a cop, that they have to be scumbags, as far as with reference to character, right? That integrity is not important. Integrity is not an important virtue for them to have. And I just prefer not to associate with those people, right? Just like I don't go, hang out with niggas in the ghettos from, excuse my French. Just like I don't go to trailer parks and hang out with the rednecks. Just like I don't go to Koreatown and, stand on a rooftop with the Buddha heads. I don't associate with people that are at that frequency, because I'm not at that frequency, right? But I don't occupy that same social class. I occupy the class of people who are creative, who are loving, who live peaceful lives. And coincidentally, don't interface with law enforcement very often. And the higher classes of people, the people, not saying that, the higher classes, we're not talking about wealth. Wealth is a product of being in the higher class, because you have more control over your physical environment. You have more control over your life. You can make decisions because you're free. And so therefore you can eventually, if you have sense, you can apply those decisions in a manner that makes you wealthy, that makes you money. And then you can move to a place where higher class people live, and you'll find that the cops aren't there. Oh, they may be there. They'll be there to help you get a cat out of a tree, or help recover your whatever Amazon package that was stolen from your doorstep, stuff like that, right? But they won't be there harassing you and banging on your fucking door and disrespecting you and feeling as though you occupy a level of society that they have the right to violate, or that your rights do not deserve to be respected, right? You're not down there with the people that they usually deal with, and with them themselves. Yeah, I'm just keeping it real, man. Cops and robbers. Remember when you were kids and you were playing cops and robbers? And the people who were not involved in the game, they didn't play cops and robbers. You knew they weren't playing. But the people who played the cops, the people who played the robbers, they all knew who each other were, right? And the people who don't occupy that social class understand that both cops and robbers deserve each other. You deserve each other. Anyway, I'm gonna get off the whole cop thing. Sustained hemispheric synchronization neurofeedback training in the gamma range can catalyze this ascent. Yes, it can. By training the brain to amplify gamma synchrony, achieving a permanent shift in neocortical arousal over extended sessions. This non-invasive technique rewires neural circuits, reducing limbic overarousal and enhancing integrative processing, drawing on neuroscientific evidence. Okay? Now, I'm not going to read all of this because there's really no sense in reading it all, because I just told you all of it, right? I just said, excuse me, I just told you everything. But there are a few things that I would like to highlight. Neurofeedback, NF, is operant conditioning for the brain. Real-time EEG feedback trains self-regulation of oscillations. Hemispheric synchronization, neurofeedback, targets interhemispheric coherence, often via bipolar montages. For example, C3 to C4, right here across the somatosensory band, for sensor-motor rhythm. But gamma-specific protocols amplified 30 to 60 hertz power and phase locking between left and right hemispheres. Okay, we're gonna be chewing into this more as the days go by. I don't want to bore you too much with this neuroscience talk, but I did want to talk to you about this before I go to bed, because I need my sleep so that my neurofeedback tomorrow morning is most effective. And since I can access the delta frequencies in a relatively short time, after I've had a nice shower right now, and a nice shower while the air conditioner is on, so that my bed is nice and cool when I go to bed, then I will be much more effective for my neurofeedback training in the morning. So we're going to go over more of this information tomorrow and in the coming days as I do more neurofeedback training on myself to demonstrate to you how it's done and the effectiveness of it. And, and you can judge for yourself. You can judge for yourself. All right? God bless you all. I really appreciate everyone who is listening to me, everyone who's watching me. Please remember to share this video, hit the like, subscribe to whatever channel that you're watching it on, and comment, right? Comment. Do the algorithm thing for me, all right? Raise that algorithm, right? Let YouTube or Facebook or whatever channel you're watching this on. I'm on Rumble, I'm on BitChute, I'm everywhere. Let whatever venue that you're watching this know that you appreciate this work. Right now, everybody's talking politics. right? Everybody's talking about you know who and the you know who's and you know what going on and all the rest of that. That's not me. I mean, I try to dip into politics, but it's just not me. It's not me. I'm a very political person to my friends in person, right? But that's not the most valuable thing that I have to talk about. This is among the more valuable things that I have to talk about. And wait until I start painting on my easel, right? And get back to doing my painting in my studio work, okay? Photography brought about the age of Impressionism because artists were out to prove that they could do what the camera could not do. So that's why that's when we went from a highly representational rendering, right, to the more abstract things, right? And it wasn't just Impressionism, it was Cubism, it was a lot of the isms, right? Dada was the first ism, believe it or not. It was called Dada. It was a reaction to the atrocities of World War I. And, you know, believe it, you know, what we're experiencing on this planet is going to bring us another art form. And we also have to prove as visual artists, as painters, that we can do what AI can't, which is not too hard to do. Anyway, I'm digressing and I'm keeping this video going longer than I intended to. So thank you for watching. As always, I want everyone to stay kind, because kind is not only the new sexy, kind is the only sexy. I want everyone to stay blessed and remember to bless others. Stay sexy, right? And stay healthy. That's the most important thing. Physically healthy and mentally healthy. Physically healthy and cognitively healthy. Thank you for watching, and I will see you early tomorrow morning. Peace.